Okay, we have a lot of updates. Now I've just dropped the link to this slide deck is in the chat. So the link to this slide deck is in the chat, so you can see all of it. We have a lot of updates, and I've just gone through and I've skipped the slides on things like Google Meet hardware, Android devices, and things which I think are maybe not quite relevant to schools using Workspace. So if you do want to see the complete list, it is in the deck, and you can click through to see that. But we've sort of prioritized what we think are the most important ones for schools. So just a quick one. Next month on September the 4th, and then again on October 2nd, we're having 2 demo calls with Cloud M. So Cloud M operates a couple of services. One of them is automations, workspace automations, things like account provisioning and especially deprovisioning, actually. And then also, if you're doing any kind of migrations, Cloud M is the recommended tool by Google to manage those migrations. So we'll be doing a demo call with Cloud M during September and October. Okay, moving on to the update. So now, of course, with Gemini launch, there's going to be a number of Gemini releases which we're going to be sharing as well. So this is quite just one that released, I think it's actually today or yesterday. This is the help you write features within Gemini on both web and mobile. I know the image there is about mobile, but it's actually both on web and mobile. It's basically, if you have Gemini, if you type in just a list of bullet points or a very, very rough draft of the email you want to send, then it will turn it into an email. You probably just saw the little polish button pops up there. So using Gemini, if you have Gemini licenses, you can turn a very, very rough draft of a message into a polished email. Okay, this is a big one. I saw Peter share this out yesterday on LinkedIn, and a lot of people were jumping on this. Google Classroom has seen, I think this is a really big update actually, student groups in Google Classroom. So rather than having to try to sort of manually assign differentiated work to students, you can now create those differentiated groups or student groups in Classroom, and you can use those for differentiation. This is really big. People have been asking about this. Well, Google celebrated 10 years of Google Classroom, so I think people have been asking for this for about 10 years. So it's a big launch for anybody who's using Classroom, of course. Okay, multi-party approval. So this is where you're on the admin console. You have one super admin who is when you're performing some kind of domain, in this case, domain-wide delegation request, you will need other super admins to approve that change. So this is, I believe this is just, it was in beta. I'm assuming it's come out of beta looking at this. Yeah, I think it's fully rolled out now. But multi-party approvals are available from the admin console. This is a case where you have multiple super admins, possibly on a very big domain, and you want to seek multiple approval before any domain changes occur. Okay, this is really, I think, mostly relevant to US schools and to any international schools which are following this. SOC compliance is all about accounting, their accounting standards in the US. And this is just addition to the Gemini compliance the Google offers. It's now SOC compliant. I'll leave it there. Specifically relevant to the US or any US accounting schools. Okay, we're going to see a couple of updates about Google, well, Google Sheets tables. You can see there from a little GIF, there's a table view just there. There's a couple of updates we're going to see to this. Now, the default view, when you create a Google form, you click on View in Sheets, the default view will be the table view, which, as you can see there, is nicely formatted. Basically, what the table view does is it takes your data, and where it can, it automatically detects the data type. You can also go and manually and select what type of data it should be, but also it will be automating the creation of drop-downs and so on. What's cool about tables, and I forget if this comes up in a later update we'll talk about, is it makes it very easy for 2 things. When you're in a table, you can filter views very easily. You can create very simple saved filter views, much better than the old creative filter view. This is much more intuitive. And the secondary thing is you can reference table data much more easily as well. So before you could have named ranges, well, this just makes it a bit easier. You're basically using the table as your named range. Named range, yes. So tables, I love them. Love Google Sheets. Okay, oh yeah, we just talked about this, intelligent suggestions. We just talked about with the drop downs and so on. Okay, this is a good one. So exactly a week ago, Google announced they are finally making it possible for domains to restrict the creation of spaces, and especially for students. And actually, Sunil, I know you're in the call. I saw you're in the call. You asked me this morning if this was possible, and it is now possible. I'm assuming this is just rolling out, and it may take a few days for everybody to see this. Generally, within 14 days, everybody will see a release. But yeah, you can restrict the creation of spaces to only staff users. Do bear in mind, this does not affect existing spaces or chats. It doesn't affect existing spaces or chats. It's for anything that is newly created. Okay, just a quick one to AppSheet has received an update. So if you're using AppSheet databases, there's an update around automations. I think this is very, very specific to AppSheet. We'll just put it there and people can see that. So basically, you can perform automations within the database. So if you're using AppSheet databases as your AppSheet data source instead of Google Sheets or something else, but you can perform those automations. Okay, this is actually, I know it says Google Workspace down here. This is actually a Gemini update, and I've just started using this week. It's actually quite good, really good, in fact. I've been quite impressed with it. I just did a demo call with a group of people this morning, and we did the take notes feature, and this is only on Gemini Premium to be aware of. But the summary document, the summary notes it took was incredibly accurate. I was actually really, really impressed with it. Surprisingly, when a feature launches initially, you expect it to be not quite as good as this one is. Yeah, very impressed with it. So if you're on Gemini Education Premium, the take notes feature, so if you're the host of the meeting with that license, you can turn on take notes, and after the meeting is complete, you will be shared a document with the notes from the meeting, and it picks up things like names. So depending on who's speaking, or if you ask somebody to say, take note of this, it will list down people's names relevant to each note. It was really, really impressive, actually. In fact, that makes me just think, Peter, I wonder if we could run this call with demo licenses of Gemini. Peter, I'll speak to you later about that. It might be good to showcase that. Live translation, David, is just going to be in Gemini now, I believe, for Korean as well. I will check about Korean language. Okay, just again about take notes for me, just about the admin setting. We'll move past that one. Okay, yeah, this is good. Google Drive attachments in Google Classroom. So if you have, obviously, your Google Drive attachments, you can actually see a certain level of engagement. So basically, you can see last edited or never edited. So you can see which students have begun an assignment and which have not yet begun working on their Google Drive attachment, all from within Classroom. Okay, and you can see there. So you can see Paula, just down on the bottom row there, hasn't edited their file yet, but we can see that Richard on the bottom left has edited their file, and the people at the top have turned them in already. So just get a little better insights into the status of those Google Classroom assignments. Okay, so this is in open beta, and you can go to this. We've got all the support articles linked here. Instead of having to turn on or off all of the API scopes for an app, you can now for third-party apps, you can select the API scopes which are being configured. So rather than all or nothing, you can select the API scopes that are being configured for a third-party app. Again, this is in follow-up to just over a year ago. Google said they're going to turn off third-party apps for students. And they said that in April, and they were going to do that in June, and then they delayed it to October. This is just increasing the controls behind those third-party apps. Google Apps Script, a little update, granular control on Google Apps Script. Just controlling who can edit Google Apps Script. Actually think, Peter, didn't somebody ask about whether students could use Google Apps Script, or there was a way of turning it off last month? I remember we talked about this.
Yeah, I think this was just rolling out during the last call. There wasn't actually an update from Google at that point. And yeah, someone couldn't see that option and wanted to control it, but yeah, it should be there now.
Yeah. Okay, again, the Google I think I covered everything in Google Tables already. They're fairly new. This is just about improving how tables are working. We'll move past that one because I think we talked about this. Okay, there's been a couple of updates to the SIS integration with Google Classroom. So now you can create classes using your SIS data, and it's specific to certain SIS partners. Okay, so it is worth looking into this. There's been an increased integration with PowerSchool. That integration with PowerSchool is specific to one version of PowerSchool as well. So it's worth diving into that to see what it's capable of doing. A lot of these SIS partners are US-centric, PowerSchool being the one that international schools use more. Okay, at the admin level, if you're deploying Classroom across the school, you have the ability to set grade settings, so grade periods, categories, grading scales across your domain. So if Classroom is your default LMS, you have greater control across the domain of how it's being used. Data loss prevention rules are now able to work alongside context-aware access. So you'll be able to prevent printing, download, or copying of files that are matching a DLP rule along with context-aware access at the same time. So you can combine those two together. Okay, Gemini received an update in the PDF viewing experience. What happens when you go to Google Drive, if you open up a PDF, it'll open up that PDF in a separate window. It's the Drive PDF viewer. From there, you'll have the side panel on the left will open up, on the right will open up, and you'll have the ability to interact with Gemini on that Google Drive PDF file. It works really, really well. I've been using it. It's great for summarizing. I had a paper that good friend Jacques wrote over the summer. It was about 12 to 15 pages long. It summarized it in just a moment. It's a very, very good way to work with PDFs in Gemini. And of course, then if you have Gemini, you have a PDF, you can then ask Gemini to create something based upon that PDF. Okay, we'll skip past that. I think we talked about it. Okay, quick update to Google Chat. So catching up on followed threads. There's just an easier way to see the threads that you want to catch up on. That's basically what this is. You'll see the threads that you're following. You can click on the little, I think you just saw the button there, the threads that you're following, and you can easily catch up on those. Okay, drop-down chips in Google Sheets has received an update. Instead of just choosing one option from a drop-down, you can now choose multiple options from the drop-down. So actually, I just noticed a couple of questions in the chat. Mitchell, you asked about Google Meet recording. No, I don't think so. I think it has to be on desktop to enable Google Meet recording. And Dion, you asked, yeah, it's a good question. Gemini is now available for students aged 13 plus. It's a Gemini chat experience only. And by that, it's gemini.google.com. Yeah, thanks, Peter. Maybe, yeah, I'll let you continue with that. So it is available for 13 plus. You have to enable it in the admin console. It is restricted to certain countries. There's a long list of countries, I think about 160, but it's worth, yeah, we'll need to check the country list as well. In addition to, so Gemini, just to differentiate between these, Gemini Education Premium is the version of Gemini that has a Google Meets features. It also has additional AI classification features as well. And so even though you may have your DLP rules or your context-aware access rules, the AI classification rules will automatically look at a file to determine if it possibly contains content which could be of a sensitive nature. So that's what this one is talking about. Labels. So we've talked about Google Drive labels a few times over the last couple of years. They've improved, well, they've basically centralized the ability to manage labels across the domain. So that's what this is. So now you can manage all your labels in one place, just gives you better access to that. And then managing combined label types is a lot easier as well. So you have, basically with labels, you have one visible label you can see on your file, and then in the background you can have many different types of labels for DLP or for other use as well. And it just makes the management of all of that much, much easier. Google Drive video files. So if you have some media, some video files in Google Drive, they will now automatically generate captions, similar to the YouTube experience when it generates captions as well. Presumably, eventually, if you have a video file in Google Drive and it's generated captions, you would then be able to use that in Gemini. We'll see how that, if that gets launched in the future. Okay, quick update here to DLP. Forms were excluded from DLP previously, and now they're included as well. So the same way you can create your DLP policies on Google Drive files, you now can do this on Google Forms as well. Seemed to be the missing link with DLP. Okay, so this is an update to how Google delivers its live streaming. And this does need to be enabled on the admin console. So basically, if you're doing live streaming within your domain, rather than, if you can sort of see the little image on the left where your IP, your internet access point, is delivering video to every device individually, it can actually use, just reading this out, Enterprise Content Delivery Network to deliver that video. So rather than from the central access point to all the devices, individual devices can deliver content to subsequent devices. I think the image clearly displays it there. So if you are doing wide-scale live streaming on your domain and you're having an issue with latency or speed, it's worth investigating this. Okay, Google Drive inventory reporting. This is really just talking about some of the visibility of some of your assets within Google Drive and exporting that to BigQuery. Okay, this is a great one. So now we're touching back into July. In a moment, we're going to be getting into some of the updates we talked about last month in July. I'm just going to pick out a few highlight updates from July because there were some big ones. And one of them is, again, another Google Classroom update. This enables guardians or parents to view or to have a preview of assigned classwork. This just rolled out July 19 is when they announced it. I was able to see this on test domain, on a test domain late July. It was working quite well, but I know a couple of people were saying they didn't see it yet. But this enables parents and guardians to preview classwork. It's a great thing. It's like, again, a missing link. Rather than just seeing a list of things that the student has to do, they're actually able to preview that work. Okay, and again, with this one, linking back to when we were just talking about DLP rules and trust rules, if a user tries to share a file that's being impacted by a DLP policy or a trust rule, they're unable to share. It's not always clear from the end user why they can't share that file. Might always not be apparent. What this does is it allows policy visualization by the end user. So when they go to share, you can see the overview GIF just there. It's going to show what policies are impacting that file. So the end user gets better visibility on what is possibly restricting their sharing. Oh yes, a small update. So Google Workspace, yeah, Gemini, Google Workspace extensions. This is when you go to gemini.google.com, you can enable Workspace extensions, and that enables you from the chat experience, and I mean the gemini.google.com experience, you can question files that you have on your Google Drive. If you're on your personal account, you have access to Google Flights, YouTube, and many other extensions as well. But on an educational account for now, we only have access to the Workspace extensions. Okay, we talked just a moment about the SAS integration. So those users working from the current SAS partners, of which there is a list, will be able to create classes directly from the SAS. And yeah, this is just talking about, again, That Power School integration, you can export grades. Yeah, this is it. Power Teacher Pro Gradebook within Power School. So you do need that specific Power School version to enable this. And then you can export grades directly from Classroom to Power School. Fantastic. I've been counting this. Shared drives, you can now have 100 levels of nested folders and 500,000 items. Very, very exciting. We'll move on. Right. Okay, this is a big one. E-signature. People have been asking about this for 6 months. It was finally rolled out in July. Everybody should be able to see that now. There's a couple of different ways to access it. When you're in your document, you go to, I think it's still, you can access it from Tools. Let me just check. There's 2 places you can do it from. One is under Tools, under the Tools menu in Google Docs, and then you go to e-signature, and then the other way is going to Insert, and you can insert e-signature fields into your document. There's 2 ways you'll see that. So again, if you have Education Plus, which nearly most schools do nowadays, then you'll see the e-signature tool there. Okay, so quick update. You probably may already have seen Google's rolled out a new menu, the data menu, where all of your compliance and data controls are accessed from. So rather than having spread around across the admin console, there's a new data menu, and you'll be able to access compliance and data controls from that new menu. And you'll see that in the admin console. AppSheet automations using Google Forms. So another update to AppSheet. I like this one because if you have an existing Google form, you may not want to redirect users to an AppSheet form to be able to get your data into AppSheet or into your AppSheet data source. You may have a Google form that you're capturing data from parents, for example, but then you want to use that data in AppSheet, and this release allows you to do that. So basically, you're taking your Google Forms data and then putting it directly into AppSheet, into your AppSheet app, as it were, as your data source. Okay, so that launched back in June as well. I think that's the last of the big updates. Okay, that was a lot. Peter, Charlie, I think enough of the updates. Let's get something interesting going on.
Yeah, thanks, James. And just on the last update, where I think that's really useful is in scenarios where you've used Google Forms before and maybe you've written some custom app script. Now you can just do that in AppSheet with no code and have it send a customized email for you or generate a Google Doc based off of that form data being submitted. So yeah, saves on some coding, I think, as well.